Okay, 6 months ago, we built this masterpiece. And it was a learning curve like nothing else. We still get a lot of DMs, people asking what our biggest mistakes were when we built the van. And I thought we should just do a quick top 10, whatever you want to call it, breakdown of our biggest mistakes, so you don't have to. Why, finger gun? Come. And the thing is, you will make mistakes. We made a lot, and we had a lot of breakdowns.
And you just need to keep on going.
But here we are. We have a van. So let's get into it. When we cut the bench top for the kitchen, we noticed that we could have extended the bench top a lot towards the sliding door to minimize the gap between the door and the edge of the bench top. Having those few extra centimeters really adds to your workspace when cooking or doing dishes, etc. Measure twice and cut once, as they say. That's something we should have done before cutting our bench top, but not all mistakes are easy to correct. Some were straight up disasters, like the next one, that literally melted in front of us. We bought the cheapest air vent on Amazon. The air from the diesel heater gets hot, and I mean really hot. The cheap brittle plastic melts when hot air gets pushed through. There are proper air vents that you can purchase from Webasto or similar, though they cost a bit more, but you will be sure they won't melt. Currently, we're rocking a big hole without any cover. But you know what's worse than plastic melting? Your entire battery bank stopped working right before you're heading out on your Euro trip. 2 days before we were going to leave Sweden and head off on our van journey, our battery bank stopped working. And everything is like died. 2 out of the 4 batteries were completely drained. I learned that I had missed 1 cable when wiring up the battery bank, making only half of the battery bank charge. It was just to recharge them again and then add that extra wire and it was good to go. Though, if you're doing your own electrical system, make sure to double check everything before turning on the power. Luckily, we caught that battery issue before we hit the road. But some problems don't show up immediately, like this next one, which only became obvious after we already thought we fixed it. Alright, the arch enemy of any vehicle owner, rust. When we bought the van, we didn't notice too much rust on it. But when we removed the side panels, the amount of rust we had just grew. We started off repairing it by scraping off the outer layer of the rust, spraying rust protection spray, primer, and then finally top coat. It only took 2 to 3 days before we realized the repair wasn't really worth much. All the rust came back instantly and we knew we had to redo it. So the second time we did it, we sanded all the rust away properly, down to the bare metal. The rust had eaten a lot more of the metal, so there was several holes that we had to patch up with fiberglass and body filler. We made sure that not a speck of rust was left before applying the primer. And we finished off everything with a top coat again. None of the rust has come back so far, so we must have done a decent job. Rust is a massive pain and we spent days fixing it properly. So after that we were determined to get other details right, which led us to the next mistake. We wanted to have the inner ceiling mounted as flush to the metal structure as possible. At first, we chopped up all the battens, screwed them directly into the metal frame using self-tapping screws. Though this did not last very long. Just after a few days, we noticed that the battens had got slightly loose just by the vibrations from when driving the van. So we removed all the battens, drilled bigger holes into the metal frame, installed rivets, and then bolted the battens into the metal frame. This made them extremely sturdy, and we have said that this is the last thing that will ever break on the van. Though I wish we were equally as thoughtful before building our roof rack. We built our roof rack from DIY aluminium profiles, as that was a fraction of the price compared to a pre-made roof rack for the Mercedes Sprinter. Though we really wanted a black roof rack, so we bought aluminium primer and paint and decided that we should paint them black ourselves. For anyone that has painted aluminium before knows that powder coating is almost the only way to get paint to stick to aluminium. The paint flaked in a matter of weeks and it looked so bad we had to take it off, scrape off all the paint to get the profiles back to the original greyish aluminium color. Needless to say, all the work painting them and scraping them off was a complete waste waste of both time and money, but hey, at least we learned something, right? So the roof rack disaster set us back. At least we could leave it alone once we gave up painting it. But with our overhead cabinets, we did not have that option. We built the fronts of our cabinets out of baseboard plywood and burlap, as we wanted something cheaper than MDF board and a custom look to them. We cut a rectangle-shaped plywood piece with a smaller rectangle-shaped hole in the middle, 4 pieces of baseboard to use as the edge, and the burlap pressed in between the plywood and the baseboard with glue. The problem was that we used 4mm plywood, which was slightly skewed already. And when we put the fronts in press for the glue to settle, they got even more skewed. If we did them today, I think we would have used MDF instead of plywood for a better finish. But you know what else needs precise cuts? The electrical board. The electrical board was pieced together by 2 pieces of scrap 12mm plywood. I looked at numerous van build series, and a lot of people did awesome looking electrical builds with hidden cables behind the electrical board. I thought it would be a piece of cake to make it look the same. I made the holes to where the cables was gonna go in and out way too small. It was impossible to hold cables behind the board, so instead I had to reroute everything on top of the board, making all the cables visible, and it looks less neat. It doesn't affect anything else but the looks, though the end result still bothers me. By this point we have learned that bad measures can mess things up. But one mistake we almost didn't catch in time: the floor. As we used XPS insulation in the subfloor and each XPS board was 60 centimeters wide, we figured we should install the floor battens between each XPS board, as that would make the XPS board easy to install without having to trim them. We used the old subfloor as a stencil when cutting out the new plywood floor, but missed something crucial. We did not take into consideration where the plywood joint would be. That meaning the floor would flex a lot, as there was no supporting batten under it. It would not be ideal to have a flexing floor in the shower, for example. Luckily, we noticed this before we closed up the floor and added a batten under each joint. Catching that mistake early saved us a ton of hassle. But you know what we didn't save? Time. Because we had to drive to the hardware store about 100 times. I don't even dare to guess how many times we ended up going to the hardware store to purchase a few things, to then come back home to realize that we missed half the things we need for the coming days. We had approximately a 30-minute drive to the city where all the hardware stores were, and some weeks we were driving in almost every day to get something. It might not seem like much with a 1-hour return drive, but if you add it up, it's so many hours and so much fuel wasted. If you're building your own van, I recommend that you plan everything before going to the store. Plan what you're doing in the coming days or even coming weeks and buy everything you need for it. You will make that back in both time and fuel. Alright, that's our mistakes when we built our van. What is your mistakes? Have you started building? Are you thinking about starting a building? Or have you built? What is your biggest mistakes or what are you dreading? Let me know in the comments. And if you want to see a full van tour, check this video out somewhere.